Hello
Hi,
again.
Ruben. How are you?
I'm good. I'm
Where are you?
in Spain.
In Spain. Okay, I'm in Los Angeles. I'm on the east side of Los Angeles. Thank you so much for doing this. I'm gonna get so many people to see your movie, man. I love your movie so much, dude.
I'm happy to hear that. Thank you.
It's so good. I first want to just apologize because I'm not a journalist or an interviewer. I'm a filmmaker. And then I've watched all of your movies and I'm realizing I'm barely that. I've rewatched your movies, over the last 2 or 3 weeks, and they're unbelievable. And I'm just going to praise you for a second, and then we'll actually just start a conversation. I have so many questions about Triangle of Sadness. I'm doing this on behalf of Letterboxd, which is this incredible social network for film lovers. It's an app where you can like build watch lists of what you want to see. So you're not just watching what the algorithms are telling you to watch. You get to build your own diet of stuff. It'll tell you where you can watch the movies in your territory. It's how I discovered a lot of your stuff. Triangle of Sadness is my favorite movie of yours. I've seen it twice now in theaters at these little like secret screenings. And it is everything that I love about movies, not just because you talk about power dynamics and wealth inequality and all of the stuff that I love so much, but that everything is so controlled. Like every shot from even your earlier films is so thoughtfully planned, and that is so absent from modern filmmaking, I feel. Like there's moments in play where it's a subway and it's this like 6-minute shot, and then it moves over on a dolly to reveal another character and then back. That kind of craftsmanship in cinema is like, oh, this person really cares. And that must have taken so much time to plan that shot out. And it's so fulfilling to watch.
Do you know that it actually was it's the tram that is turning. So it's turning. So that's why the camera is all of a sudden moving angle in that one. So it's not even a dolly move. It's
I
like
see.
because I had this absurd idea that I should be like very formalistic strict. I will never move the camera. So that scene in the tram is like basically that there's the two carriages of the tram is moving, so
I
like
see.
turning around in a
I
corner.
see.
So that's why the perspective is changing.
I see. And you do the same thing in Involuntary. It moves over to show the
Exactly.
girls.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. I love that stuff. It's my favorite kind of filmmaking. And also just like the satire, the stuff that you're doing I feel so lucky that I get to watch these movies. Like I love Mark Twain, who you mentioned in Triangle of Sadness. And it feels like we're very lucky that you've decided to do comedy, that like your movies are very formal and very well made, but the fact that I'm laughing the whole time, it's like it's just the perfect center of the Venn diagram of my favorite things about movies and life. um yeah, I wanted to say, like, first off, the first question is this your first film fully in English? And like in watching it again, there are small things where I'm noticing it is for an American audience. It is for a Western English audience. Why did you decide to tell this story in English?
I think it was also in order to be able to reach a larger audience and get a bigger distribution. That was part of it. But I tried out a little bit in the square to work on English with Elizabeth Moss and Dominic West. So, and I felt okay, I can control directing even if it's not in my original language. So I wanted to try it. I wanted to do it. And I also, I got together with my wife 8 years ago, and she's German, and we only speak English to each other. And it was through her I got closer to the topic of the film. She's a fashion photographer.
Right.
So it was a natural way of starting to talk about the film and playing around with idea. And we spent so many hours talking about the content. And the film, the setup of the film was like basically in an international environment, the fashion world, the yacht, and and there was also some actors that I was curious of approaching and trying to work with that was English speaking. So there was this kind of reasons basically.
Was it intentional? Was it very early on that you wanted Woody Harrelson to be the captain of the boat? Was that one of the early actors you wanted?
Yes, that was something that I was curious about. I mean, I think I knew that I wanted to have someone that was very known behind that door, and I, you know, so I thought it was fun that you have the three first scenes. Basically, you don't see this actor, and then when it opens up, it turns out like it's Woody Harrelson, and I just love the idea about just hearing his voice like for the three first scenes.
It's also so wonderful, like the way that you have him. He's clearly, there's bottles like rolling around in it. He's like clearly drunk and lying that he's not drunk inside of his cabin. And then it is a really fulfilling thing when he opens the door. But when he's in the opening credits, everybody that's an American is waiting to see Woody Harrelson, and then you hide him for like, you know, the first hour of the movie. Basically, it's really funny. And then his first scene is so fulfilling to watch. He's just like, you're being weird. This is great. Everything's going to go wonderful. I have questions about that. I'm a filmmaker as well. So most of my questions are going to be about the craft of like, how did you get the boat to tilt? How is like what actually the actors are leaning and things are moving, the curtains are moving. How did you physically get that effect?
Well, we built parts of the interior of the yacht on gimbal. So the dining room, for example, we built on a gimbal, and a corridor, and one of the cabins we built on a gimbal, and we could move things around to create the illusion that it was different cabins. But basically, we used one of the cabins and just like rebuilt the furniture in there to get the feeling that we had many different cabins. And then we could rock the set approximately 20 degrees in both angles with a hydraulic system, you know, basically like what you use when you're building in amusement park and stuff like that. And it was quite interesting because when we started to shoot, the crew, some parts of the crew got seasick, so they had to eat seasick pills because they were like on this rocking set all day and started to feel seasick.
What is it like? There's an interview with Bong Joon-ho, and he says that when he's on set, somebody asked him, "What is it like to be on your sets?" And he says, "Oh, I just eat the whole time. I just eat all day. I'm constantly like eating noodles." And I'm so curious as to what it's like to be on your sets. You started out as a documentary filmmaker and a ski filmmaker, and I've heard you say that like you would set up a camera for a long time just to get this one moment, and that became your education in how to make movies. What is it like being on your sets now that might be different from other film sets?
I think that I always try to, how to say, improve the script in every part of the filmmaking. So even if I've written a script when it comes to before we go on set, then I ask the actors, okay, is this really possible for you when we now are trying out the scene? Can you say this line that is in the script? And I love when they say, no, it's not possible, because it doesn't feel natural to me. I always try to investigate the scene almost from a sociological point of view, that do I believe in the behavior that these humans are having in front of the camera? And sometimes I feel like, okay, no, I don't believe in it. And I couldn't predict this before I watching the scene through a camera, and before I'm watching the scene through looking at the display. And therefore, the beginning of the day, I use also as a possibility for the actors to add like lines that maybe is not in the script, add things that is maybe not in the script, go in a direction that is not decided on forehand, and to figure out, okay, how should we shape this scene? And then when we hopefully, you know, you get something you feel, this is unique. This I have never seen in another film scene. This I have not seen in a similar scene that I've been watching before. I always try to find something that is a unique approach. And when I find that, then I feel like, wow, there it is. Let's keep that. And it is, of course, within the frame of the scene, but it can be a small thing. And then I start to repeat, do take after take. And it often gets better and better and better up to take 20. then it gets worse. And all of a sudden it's like, shit, but it was better before. And you try to push up the level again. You know that the actors are getting tired. They are getting used to it. They lose the suspense. But then you try to push up them so they go above the performance that they did before. And then I say, okay, everybody, half an hour break. And then when they come back, hopefully the scene is in their backbone, you know, right. So they know it 100%. It's almost like we have been doing theater rehearsal over and over and over again. And now they have it in the backbone. And then I go 5 takes left. And then I start a countdown. 4 takes left, come on now. And really trying to push a feeling that it's now or never. We have to pull this off. And the goal is to create a presence from everybody that is on set. And everybody that is in front of the camera, of course. And in order to do that, I want to give the actors maximum possible attention. So I have now in Triangle of Sadness, I gathered the whole film team around the camera. So everybody's sitting there looking at the actors. No one is allowed to stand over there and thinking about something else. Now we're going to give all the attention to the actors. And we go 3 takes left, come on, you know. And very often it's the second last take that is the best one, actually. It's very strange. It's not the last one, but it's the second last one. And what I have done this time is, when I was shooting Triangle of Sadness, I brought the gong to set also. So I could go like, bong. So instead of saying action on the last take, I was hitting the gong, bong. And then when you couldn't hear any sound anymore, then one of the actors have the task to start the scene. So it becomes like a vibrating feeling of presence in the room. And then we are capturing that presence. We're capturing something unique must happen. I think this comes from ski filmmaking for me, because from making ski films was like, okay, you have a mountainside, like, and I'm standing on one mountainside and I'm looking at the ski that is this small, you know, and it's no tracks. So there's a danger. There can be an avalanche. And often it's a line that the skier is going to take that is spectacular in some way, with like jumps and stuff like that. And it created just such a strong presence to shoot. It was like, okay, wow, you want the extraordinary to happen every day when you are shooting ski films. And I feel the same thing. It doesn't matter if I shoot a scene between a couple that have a relationship discussion, or if it's vomiting and it's a storm. You want things to go above the expectations of what we could expect when the crew and everybody like that. So
give me an example of a time where like you captured that lightning in a bottle. Was there a time on Triangle of Sadness where you're like, this is different from the script, but it is like, this is the movie. I can't believe we got that. Is there a moment like that?
I'm sorry to say, but I don't think it's that moment in Triangle of Sadness. Okay. I didn't have that 100%. Maybe, okay, I would say like when you had the face expression of Dolly De Leon in the end, when she was holding the rock and is about to hit it in the head, then I had a similar, close to that kind of feeling. But you know, as a filmmaker, it always gets harder and harder to reach further than you can expect, because you also have some experience of some quite good scenes, hopefully.
Right.
So for me, I have had scenes, for example, in Play, when we were shooting the kids in the tram, and that long shot, and we were working on that for 3 days, and the last take is like so much better than the other takes. It's so much better. Then you like, when you go home that day, then you're like, wow. And I had, when we were shooting the monkey performance in the square, which was also a scene that was taking kind of quite much risk, because we took Terry Notary, we flew him over from LA, and I didn't know, will this idea actually work out? Like a performance artist imitating a monkey, how will that really be interesting to look at? And when he starts to do his performance, I'm like, damn, this is going to be, I'm going to like this. This is going to be great. So I feel that for me, the monkey performance is the strongest experience I've had as a director, basically. So when I go into the shooting of Triangle of Sadness, okay, I have glimpses of moments where I feel like, wow, it was better than I could expect. Wow, shit, Sunni Melles, when she's throwing up, she's great. When she's sliding around on the floor, this is fantastic. But for me, in order to get that feeling, I really have to do a long shot, shot.
Yeah, so that's something that's so interesting to me. Like your films are all so very constructed. It's surprising to me at all that there's any improv or play on set. Everything feels like you edited the film before you made the movie, before you showed up on set. Down to like the music. There's a moment when the Russian manure salesman is sitting there and he's doing his bit, he's telling a story, and then his daughter interrupts him, and the piano behind them stops the song for this funny little bit. And then as soon as he turns back to the conversation, the song starts up again. And it feels like that was all very constructed beforehand. It's surprising to me that like these actors have play at all, having edited films before and made films myself. So what is the casting?
Sorry, I have to say something there, because you are into something that is interesting. Because, for an example, you talked about the bottles that you heard when Woody is playing the drunk captain. The bottles was something that came after a while when I was sitting in the editing. I miss something here. It's something that is missing. And I regretted a little bit when I was shooting the scene, because I took away a bottle from his hand that he had in the beginning when it's opening. So, and I was, how should I deal with it? And when you have time in the editing, the great thing is that ideas pop up and they're like, wow, let's try that. Oh, of course, there's bottles on the floor when he's walking. And then they try it and they're like, wow, there it is. I've solved it. Now you really add what is going on in there. But it comes after week 3 of editing that scene. So time working on editing, time on set, that's when you can get these ideas that is wow. And the same thing with the piano, the self-playing piano, because that happened out of accident, that when I was cutting, that is like, something was wrong on the timeline.
Yeah.
So it just stopped at that point. And like, ha, that was great. And then you create it, or you construct something around it. So it's actually, yeah.
Tell me about the casting process. Tell me about how you fit these incredibly authentic performers into your films. Like, what is it like to cast a movie of yours?
Well, when I was casting this film, then it was, of course, fun that you could choose different nationalities and you could bring together an ensemble that was very unexpected. I love to use new faces, because it's just a way of like experiencing a film, not through now comes Tom Cruise again, let's see what he does with this part. I respect that also, because then you see the skill of the actor, of course. So I can understand working like that is fantastic. But I love when you get to experience a new face and a new human being that have some originality. And when we were casting the film, then we were in many different parts of, like, we were in Berlin and Paris, in LA, New York, London, Manila, Stockholm, Copenhagen, all over the place, basically. And I think that I always try to have a certain kind of open approach to the part when I'm casting, because sometimes when someone is giving me something unexpected, I realize that's much more interesting. So, for an example, Slatko Buric, that plays Dmitry, I was thinking that the Russian oligarch should be like, tough and like typical, stereotypical idea about the Russian oligarch. But he just played him like, hey, come be with me. He's the only guy that I want to hang around with in the cast or the characters.
Yeah.
So when he was playing him in that nice way, and immediately understand that's probably closer to the truth, because we have such a absurd idea of portraying rich people as egoistic and mean, poor people as nice and genuine. And like, but when he was just playing, yeah, whoa, that was probably more true. And I felt it gave the film some energy that I couldn't predict. And so always when you do these casting sessions with the different places and with the different actors, I always want the actor to shape the role in the way that they want to do it, because then you can get some like, oh wow, that is fantastic, and very often they surprise you with something that you couldn't think of yourself. And I always try to give them at least 1 hour each, because I trust the casting director. They have said this person is someone that is interesting. Okay, great. Then I tell them about the film. I tell them why I'm interested in the thematic and the topic, and then we start the improvisation around a very clear situation, a very clear setup. Always, it must be that it's very easy for them to relate to the setup of the situation, because then all of us almost get great actors. If we know a strong setup of a situation, we become good actors. And then we start to play around, and I say to them, you can't do something wrong. You can't do anything wrong. If we can start over, or we can do whatever, because I want to look at the pure expression of this person when they are not under pressure. I don't want them to be under pressure. I want them to be there and present. And yeah.
You give them a full hour and you sit with them. How long does that take? What is the casting? How long does that take to cast the full movie, let's say?
Well, I don't know. It probably took a half a year or something like that, and maybe a little bit longer before we was trying out Shalby. It took quite long, but yeah, it depends. But the casting process, I think, is great also, because when you start an improvisation like this, very often it comes out lines that you can use in the script. So wow, yeah, exactly. And then you just take them and put them into the script. And so the casting process is a great part of the process to try out. Does the script work? Is it really fun? Like, is it interesting? You know.
I remember there's an interview with David Fincher and Jesse Eisenberg where he says that when they would show up to rehearsal for The Social Network, David didn't want to do scene work at first of getting the actors together. He just wanted to talk about the whole movie. He wanted to talk about like every line in the movie and why it was important. And it's funny, I watched the movie again last night and then went out to a diner and talked about it. And it was like, everybody must have been all on the same page to make something this cohesive and awesome. Like, does that feel like that when you're on set? Does it feel like a summer camp where everybody is working for the same goal?
In some ways, yes. I mean, I also think it's very important that I try to explain exactly why this character is there, why we're doing that, why we're shooting that scene. Because when the actors also is getting aware of where we're heading and why we're heading in that direction, they can come up with things that is like, wow, that is great. So I work as a professor at the film school in Gothenburg in the university, and with directing students. And very often I feel that they have bought in on the idea that the director and scriptwriter is a solitary genius that is working in connection with God, and like writing down his genius ideas, and therefore they don't try out the ideas, they don't talk about the ideas, they don't use their classmates, they don't like, okay. So for me to be open about the process to everybody I meet. And then in the end, I'm the one that is going to decide what is going to be in the film. But very often the greatest ideas is someone else that I've had. For an example, in Force Majeure, where I had seen this YouTube clip that I thought was hilarious. That was a tourist sitting on an outdoor restaurant in the Alps. And it was a family, that was like eating lunch, and all of a sudden an avalanche comes down the mountainside, and they are like, "Woo! Wow! Beautiful!" And I loved when that sharing goes from joyful to nervous, and then to screams in panic, and then everybody was running away. And it's the same thing as it is in the film. It's only the snow smoke that reached, so they have to go back and sit and continue their lunch, even if they have made a complete fool of themselves. And I thought it was hilarious. And I told a friend about this that is an actor, and he has a lot of shame in his body. He's a man. He has a problem of being a man. so he tells to me, like, what if it's only the father that runs? Like, and there it is, like. And I immediately, when he says that, you are right. That's, of course, it have to be like that. So and in the same thing in Triangle of Sadness, I was thinking of on the island that it should be a male mechanic on the boat that knew how to make fish and to make fire. But then it's a student on the school that is like saying, when I'm pitching the film, he's like, isn't it more interesting if it's a woman? He's 100% right. And also connected to the thematic of the film, he's 100% right. So I think that there are so many things that if I wouldn't have been open about the process and the content and so on, I wouldn't get the input to great details of the film.
It's so true. It's the most collaborative art form. It is like so many different talented people that then come in. David Fincher says that. He says, if the movie's very good, I'll get more credit than I deserve. And if the movie's very bad, I also get more credit than I deserve.
Yeah.
So your films are all, I feel like it is like reading Mark Twain or Cormac McCarthy or James Joyce, where it is like incredibly formal and classical storytelling. And then the characters are so rich that the dialogue feels very natural. And also all the other stuff feels like it is a psychological study, and there's a lot of like philosophy that goes into your films. This one is different because there's so much disgust in the film. There's so much disgusting vomit and diarrhea, which is my favorite. It's incredible that like you have come into these wealthy spaces and then dehumanized, or rather humanized, these very wealthy people. I'm so curious about that, of like, why tell this story? Why use disgust for an audience? Like, what is the value of disgusting an audience?
When I was decided that I wanted to do something on a yacht, I talked to people, did research, and they told me that it's very often one day on these cruises that people get seasick, because you're not used to the rocking and so on. So it doesn't take that much before people start throwing up. The idea of the Marxist captain was already there. Like, it's fun if we have a Marxist captain on a luxury yacht. And it just came up, the idea he should read from the Communistic Manifest to these throwing up passengers. It's just an image that I think is fun. I like the image. I also knew that we are going to end up on the deserted island. So I thought if we push this storm, if we push the throw up, if they go into shitting, maybe it will be a little bit like a metaphor for the end of the Western civilization, if I go really, really far. So I knew already from the beginning I wanted to go really, really far, but I didn't know what would happen. But my intention was, if we go really far, then the throw up and the shitting will be something else than it actually is. But I don't know if I succeeded. I think that everybody is like saying, it's like, wow, there's a lot of throw up. But no one is really saying it's the end of the Western civilization. They're only saying,
No, I read it as both. Like it's so fulfilling to me that like you go to Cannes with this film. It's everybody that shows up in yachts to the festival. Everybody's wearing tuxedos. And you have all of these people vomiting on themselves, which is some really incredible computer-generated effects. Like, I mean, that is some very impressive CG. I'm curious about that. Like the vomiting, because there's a moment I was watching it. It's like a magic trick. She starts out and she throws up. It's the beginning of the shot. So you think maybe she has a mouthful of fake vomit and she throws up. But then she takes a glass of champagne and drinks the glass of champagne and then puts it down. And then a bunch more vomit comes out. How did you do it? How is that magic trick done?
Well, we had tubes that was going like from the back into the mouth and then pointing that way. So when we were shooting from this side, we could put the tube on this side. And the CGI was basically to take away the tube afterwards.
It's so impressive.
Yeah. So then we had a guy that could push a button, like he could just like push a button and then a new throw up came. So we could surprise the actors also. So when they were like playing the scene, they never knew really when it would come or not come. But I also want to give credit to Sunni Melles that plays that lady that is throwing up and drinking champagne, because she's probably the most physical actress I have been working with. She could go so far, and she had no problem. She wanted to do it again. She wanted the boat to rock more. She wanted to slide harder into the walls, and she also could provoke throw up herself. So she could. So she had been playing on stage in theater a character like a role where she were throwing up. So she actually could provoke throw up also herself.
I'm worried about time, but I have one small question. A thing that I noticed upon watching it again, and there's a bunch of Easter eggs throughout the film, like they're eating octopus, they're cooking octopus on the boat, and then they're cooking octopus on the island. There's like 1,000 little things of Utopia Realist is what the guy is reading on the boat. Yeah, small things like that are really wonderful. But when they're having the argument when they land on the island about if the guy is a pirate or not, you choose to focus on the most fragile, susceptible member of the woman who had the stroke, and she's sitting in this lifeboat, and they're fighting about stuff that isn't important as the world is ending, basically, for her. She's worried that she's going to die, and it feels like this beautiful metaphor of what is happening right now, that like, we all know that climate change is happening and we're fighting about everything instead of coming together to unite. I thought that was, upon rewatching it, one of the most subtle and beautiful suggestions from the filmmaker that like, hey, we need to stop fighting.
Yeah, thank you. I'm happy about that you saw that, because that was really the intention with that. If you look at the kind of identity politics thing that is going on, and I mean, there's a certain kind of, how to say, a meta level of the discussion about like different topics that maybe makes us not see the whole picture. So I really wanted to focus on the most vulnerable person on the island, and that she is completely left out when it comes to this new setup. So
I love that. There's an expression in Norwegian, maybe it's in Swedish too, but they say that there are two ways to bring down a house. One of them is with sledgehammers and the other is with termites. And I always see that in your films. This film has the biggest sledgehammers in it from all of your other films, but then there are these wonderful little Easter egg termites that are like kind of corroding the power dynamics of modern society. It's really wonderful. The microaggressions thing of put your hands down, that was so
great that you mention it at the same time, because it's that is really connected to the same kind of idea. It's actually a documentary that is on YouTube that is about a school. I don't remember.
Evergreen State College protests. I recognized it. Yeah.
Have you seen the YouTube? The documentary is on YouTube. So you remember when the principal is talking to the students?
George, put your hands down. Put your hands down, George.
Because I was watching that documentary when we were shooting the island. So a friend of me sent me that documentary, and it's one of the most scary thing I watched, I think.
It's a hostage situation. It's a hostage situation, yeah.
And when the principal that thinks that he's on the same side as the students and he wants to talk to them, and then it's like he doesn't know where to go with his hands. Like it's so painful. And so I took Harry's to my room, and I want to look at this. We have to do this tomorrow. So it was because of looking that I changed the script.
Wow, that quickly, that like the next day you were doing that. Wow, man, that is so cool.
I think it's so important that, you know, when you get a strong impulse of something, it can result in a strong scene. I'm not sure it made it this time, but sometimes you have to, fuck, I got a strong feeling of something, and you have to trust in that energy in yourself, because you're going to, how to say, transform that energy to the actors and to everything about the scene, and it will end up in the end result. So I think it's important to follow these impulses if you get them.
That is a beautiful way to end it. I don't want to take up any more of your time. Dude, I want to say thank you on behalf of the Letterboxd community. Anybody on Letterboxd, please go see this movie. Please share this movie as much as possible. It's coming out on October 7th in American theaters. Act like you are the film's publicist. Tell everybody about this movie. There's only one movie this season that does what this movie does. I've never seen anything like it. It is a real masterpiece. I need to thank Gemma and Jack and the entire Letterboxd team, all the Letterboxd users. I want to thank Walter Chaw for helping me prepare for this interview. It was a bit like Nathan Fielder's rehearsal, trying to not seem like an idiot in front of Ruben. Ruben Östlund, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I enjoyed it a lot. Thank you so much. I hope I see you in LA when I'm coming next time.
Anytime, man. I would love to meet you. This is the beginning of a much longer conversation. I love everything about this movie, and I have so many more questions, but you have to go. So thank you so much, man.
Great. Thank you.
Take it easy, man.